So today's video is all about closed back headphones under $1,000. It's not going to cover every single model out there, but it will cover some of the most popular and legendary picks, along with some new and potentially big hits to come. These guide videos are going to focus on specific categories, of course, starting with the closed back headphone market. And I wanted to start with closed backs because they have some unique benefits. One is they block out environmental sound. So if you're in a noisier environment that you don't want to hear as much, a closed back headphone is preferred for that. They also are known for an elevated bass response, so if you're chasing more of a bass hit or impact, closed back headphones are a good option out there. In addition to that, if you're in a quieter environment and you don't want people hearing what you're listening to, a closed back headphone is going to help trap some of that sound in. Now, typically I prefer open back headphones when it comes to music listening thanks to their sonic performance, but they of course don't have the benefits of sound isolation. So if you don't need the isolation, keep your eye out on a future video that will come where I talk about open back headphones. And then lastly, if you use this as a guide to treat yourself to something new or to purchase a headphone for someone special, I hope you find the video helpful. And if you do, don't forget to like and subscribe. I will have links in the description below to help you find any of the models covered here in this video to help save you some time and make it easier to shop. And with that being said, let's kick things off with the affordable FiiO JT1. The FiiO JT1 is an affordable headphone that comes in at a holiday gift level price of only $69.99. Available in both black and gray with lots of positive user reviews, the JT1 kind of set a benchmark of being a great all-rounder with the low price tag. The unboxing experience itself is rather basic, but it does come with a felt travel pouch and a really high quality detachable 3.5mm cord. The clamp force is super light, so it may not be the best for any form of active use, but I do like it for casual listening. The bass is strong, so it's not that neutral, but the bass lift is accompanied by enough upper mids and treble to not sound too congested either. Voices don't sound as natural thanks to the boosted bass and upper bass cut, but for under $100, I don't think there's a better complete package for a closed back headphone right now. The AKG K371 has been a top recommendation by audiophiles for years, mainly due to the reason that it's tuned amazingly well. When I say tuned well, what do I mean? Well, there's a target called the Harman target, and that represents an average of preferences from a lot of user listening surveys, and that can vary based off what we hear and also what we consume. It's not a perfect target, but it's an ideal safe tune that generally pleases most listeners. The K371 is close enough to that target while still being affordable, so it's also a safe pick because it happens to play everything well. The bass is strong but not overly so, and the mid-range is fantastic, with vocals sounding very natural and clear. Upper mids are relaxed slightly though, which is again a safe sound profile as nothing will be harsh or shouty sounding, but it may not sound as clear or analytical as some other models here. The treble has a great balance of extension without being over the top as well. My main gripe with the K371 is comfort and build quality. It doesn't feel overly cheap considering the price, but the headband padding is poor and I have some issues with ergonomics on how it sits on my head. I feel like it only just creates a seal behind my ears, which is really important for consistent bass delivery. Depending on your head shape, you might not get the same kind of bass experience that's shown on the measurements, so keep that in mind. I purchased my K371 as well and have a pretty bad channel imbalance and perhaps the worst spot to have a channel imbalance. So if you get one, just make sure the sound is similar from both left and right. I don't have a K361 here, but they are very similar to an extent. One, the K361 comes in at under $100. It's a little bit leaner in the bass department and brighter in the 3 kHz region. So if you wanted an AKG headphone for gaming, the K361 is a better pick. Otherwise, I think more people would prefer the K371 for music. The Rode NTH100 comes in a few variants, both white and black, and the option to add a boom mic, which can bring up the price to about $180. It's a rather clean design, and even though the ear pads are small, I really like the pad material. It actually feels quite cool to wear over a longer period of time, which was surprising. If you have larger ears, you may not find the comfort to be as good as how I found it because the openings are rather small and they are shaped a little funny as well. The included cord is sleeved with a TPU rubber jacket, which while feels durable, has a surprising amount of microphonics, so you hear quite a lot of cable noise when wearing the headphone and moving around. It's not easy to replace either as it uses a proprietary locking connector. The sound profile has just a subtle boxiness to it. The bass is nice and well received for tracks that command it, but when doing some critical listening, I find that vocals sound a little bit thicker and lacks the clarity and detail that many other options here have. If you want something that sounds a little thick, super laid back, and like the Rode branding, then I'm sure there's a place for it, especially if you want an analog headphone with a decent boom mic to support either your gaming or conference calls during the day. The FiiO FT1 sells for $149, and this is a reset the market type headphone. It has a beautiful wood cup finish, which is now available in 2 colors, and it comes with a travel case and standard 3.5mm terminated ports, so you can swap cables to anything you like. It comes with 2 sets of high quality cables though, one balanced and one single ended. Both have the same fabric sleeve, which does have some microphonics issues as well, but not nearly as comparable to the NTH100 from Rode. I find it very comfortable with decent noise isolation and large ear pads. Aside from the value it brings on comfort, design, and features, it's an even better value in sound quality. Having the technical performance of more expensive headphones like the Aune SR7000 or the Focal Azurys while being a fraction of the price is game-changing. I think the slight extra energy in the 2000 Hz area is the only potential risk for some dislike with the stock sound profile, as some might find it to have a slight shouty characteristic to it or just too forward in the vocal region as a whole. It's not overly strong though, and some people will enjoy the more forward vocal mix backed by very deep and powerful bass extension. This sound profile plays really well to a wide variety of music from rap to classical, all while being very comfortable to boot. The Sony MDR-M1 at $250 is an interesting option. There is a strong emphasis in the deep bass region, and the mid bass is rather strong as well, but it doesn't sound as punchy as the upcoming DT700 Pro X I'll be talking about. Now there's an upper bass cut at about 250 Hz on the MDR-M1 that's very similar to the beyerdynamic model as well, allowing strong emphasis without making voices sound overly boomy or boxy. If tuned to sound the same, I find that the Sony MDR-M1 has an overall edge in technicality and detail retrieval when compared to something like the beyerdynamic 700 Pro X. Now the M1 has a more relaxed presentation in the pinna region at 4000 Hz or so, which makes it sound less detailed than it could, but this is such an easy listening experience, I think that's smart that they pulled it back here. As you approach 8000 Hz, the treble energy picks back up, and it helps keep the headphone from sounding too closed off. This doesn't play particularly like a high-end headphone, especially when you listen to something like the less expensive FT1 or the Aune SR7000, but it's a great daily driver as long as you like bass. But personally, I love the simple chassis design. It's very easy to stow and just use every day, regardless of where you want to set it down. The DT700 Pro X at $270 is a very interesting option here. Beyerdynamic markets the 700 Pro X as for recording and monitoring. It comes with a super high quality carrying pouch and 2 single-ended cables of different lengths, terminated with a single mini XLR to lock into the headphone. The weight and clamp of the headphone is moderate, but the pads are just this wonderful soft velour with deep enough cups to fit most ears. The center acoustic discs stick out a little bit, so you might feel that depending on the size of your ear, but these are deeper than some other beyerdynamic models, so I didn't really have an issue here. Now the DT700 Pro X has a somewhat smoothed over effect compared to some of the more analytical sounding headphones I'm covering here. It's not purely a treble or tuning thing here. It's the driver's ability to provide the most subtle details and nuances of the music, which here seems to have been designed to have some restraint and dampening. One benefit is less than perfectly recorded tracks will still sound great, however you may not hear every single effect produced on a more analytical track. The bass is really punchy here though, with great dynamics and slam. Mixed with smooth delivery, this is one of the best headphones here for rock music, and I just love listening to rock and metal on these without feeling like I needed to change anything with EQ. I think vocals have a slight dryness to them, but that's only when compared to headphones like the FT1 or SR7000, which seem to be a bit more intimate sounding. This isn't a perfect headphone, but it's a very simple plug-and-play option that requires little to no EQ to enjoy, and I find the build quality and comfort to be good as well. And then you have the Meze 99 Classic and Neo, which are approximately $300 or $200 respectively. The Classic is adorned by a beautiful wood and gold finish, which while unique won't be everyone's cup of tea. Thankfully you have the Neo version, which is black and silver and sounds nearly identical for quite a bit less money thanks to the use of more plastic instead of wood. I find the symmetrical design, lightweight, and self-adjusting suspension head strap to be very comfortable to me. The leatherette pads do a nice job of locking sound in, but they do build up a little bit of heat over time. This isn't a headphone I would suggest as your only headphone, but it's something to consider if you want a little special sauce or flavor to the sound. The bass is strongly boosted and it does carry into the mids, so there is an essence of boxiness or thickness to the sound. Upper mids are relaxed and recessed a bit, so vocals are a little bit further back in the mix. This can make for a more casual listening session, as the 99 is not a super analytical headphone. When compared to the mid-range, the 99 has some emphasis in the mid to high treble, making certain instruments or audio cues really dance around you. Again, this is not close to neutral, but the coloration of sound might make certain songs come to life and sound more fun to listen to. The boosted treble did not add any real sibilance to me, so I don't find any area particularly offensive. It's just one of those musical, fun-sounding headphones, but it's definitely not close to a neutral or analytical sound. The Sennheiser HD620S at $329 is a pretty unique headphone. The 600 moniker suggests that it's closer to the HD6XO lineup like the 650 or 6XX, but it actually has more in common with the HD560S, both in chassis design and driver performance. Like many other Sennheiser models, the chassis has a bit of clamp force to it, but the lightweight and incredible ear pad plushness ensures long-term listening comfort. The passive noise isolation is also the best of all models discussed in this entire video, reducing environmental noise and retaining what you listen to better than any other model I've tried. The 620S also has one of the most spacious sounds, almost like they're trying to mimic some of the wideness of the 800S, which is a much more expensive open back but in a closed back form. This is done by a generous scoop in the 1.5 to 2 kHz area, using frequency response as a trick to kind of push things further back in the mix, making them seem more distant or wide. It's a fun effect, but not one I would want to have for every single thing I listen to. If you're chasing close to tonal perfection, where voices and instruments more closely sound like they do in real life, the 620S is just slightly off. It does depend on what you listen to though. I think especially for live music and movie listening, it's an absolutely wonderful headphone. And once I've EQ'd the 620S to my liking for tonality, a lot of that spaciousness kind of shrinks, and it's now more comparable to others with a similar end result sound profile. At moderate volumes, I still enjoy a wide variety of content on them, and the voices and imaging performance sounds great. I think this is a great headphone in its own unique ways, and I feel physically it will last a very long time. The full-cal Azurys comes in at $549 and is only available in a light blue color. This was sent to me by the folks over at headphones.com, so massive thanks to them, and I will have links in the description to help you find it. Where the Sennheiser HD620S excels in isolation, the Azurys excels in breathability. It still has decent isolation, but this does not seal like a 620S or even the Sony MD-1. It has a wonderful blend of excellent build quality, comfort, and sound quality. Now, styling is subjective, but this certainly looks like a more premium headphone, aligning better with the $550 sticker price. The bass on the Azurys is wonderful, with full extension down to 20 Hz with ease. It's not as strong of a bass profile as something like the MDR-M1 or even the FiiO FT1, but the bass you do get is incredibly nuanced and dynamic. It's a wonderful headphone for mixed content, having a nice punch for rock music, while also digging deep enough for rap, EDM, movies, etc. The bass isn't so strong that it's negatively impacting the mids, allowing for a more natural audio presentation for both instruments and vocals. The only real issue I have is the upper mid-range and low treble. The Azurys shifts the pinna region slightly right, followed by a rather large recess and relatively tame treble. This causes two things. One is a slight glare that exposes itself from time to time, or two, you might find that some songs do not have the same amount of detail or clarity you were expecting. In many cases, this headphone is fantastic. It can't run in a balanced configuration, but it's very easy to drive, and again, it's comfortable and stylish. Because it has one of the best bass deliveries here with a perfect balance of power and dynamics, I think if you have some EQ to address the timbre issues, it's still one of the better options here. Moving on to the beyerdynamic DT1770 Mark II at $599. Now, this headphone is quite literally one of the newest headphones from Beyerdynamic, having just been released a week ago prior to filming this. Now, consider this as a headphone that upgrades from the 700 Pro X I previously covered in this video. The 1770 Mark II comes with a hard case instead of a pouch, 2 cable options, and 2 sets of pads. I prefer the velour ones, which are installed by default, but if you switch to the leatherette pads, you get even more bass and slightly less treble. The leatherette pads have a less consistent seal for me though, so depending on your head shape, you might actually get less bass than the velour. The only real benefit to the leatherette is slightly better noise isolation, and assuming that you use the velour pad, the tuning is actually quite similar to the less expensive 700 Pro X. Bass is equally elevated, but there's less of a cut in the low mid-range, allowing vocals and instruments to sound a little bit more natural. The 1770 Mark II is also a touch less forward in the upper mids and low treble, but also has less of a dip in the pinna region of around 4000 Hz. While it doesn't come across as forward on some tracks, I found the vocal presentation to be more cohesive overall. My only two complaints is that it still sounds a little bit dry and slightly blunted in vocals and bass, and there is an 8000 Hz peak that to me needs a touch of EQ to tame. Aside from that, it sounds more detailed, more vast and wide, and is built a little bit better than the 700 Pro X. If that's worth the price increase to you, then I think you'll be happy with it. So now let's take a look at the Aune SR7000, which goes for $599. The SR7000 comes with a pretty amazing case and cable set. The clear sleeved copper balanced cable is absolutely amazing. It looks beautiful and has zero microphonics issues. I really like what's included here. Overall, it's probably the most comfortable headphone here, beating the FiiO FT1 and Focal models, but is a little bit large feeling on the head. So if you have a small head, you might find it slightly too loose or insecure. It has a pretty good sound curve out of the box, adhering close to the Harman curve until you get into the low treble, which has a recess again in the pinna region. It does have more energy in the 15,000 Hertz area and up, which really creates a sense of space and airiness to the sound, further relieving some of the congestion a closed back headphone typically has. The strong upper treble might be a little bit bright for some, but others will find it just right. I find that metallic instruments really come through more forward on this headphone than essentially all other headphones here. Another cool trick is how forward the drivers are angled. This helps move the audio mix slightly more forward towards the front, and it interacts with your ears in a different way than many other headphones here. This helps again to increase its staging and spaciousness. Bass comes in strong and clean, but it's not overpowering. If anything, it sounds a touch tight or blunted compared to the FT1 or the Azurys. There's a faint touch of nasalness to certain vocals as well, making some tracks sound a little bit pinched, especially followed by the low treble being relaxed, which kind of truncates some trailing tones. It is a very wide sounding headphone at the expense of some neutral tuning, but it's not too egregious, and this is just me being picky. I think the SR7000 is a wonderful headphone in certain areas, mainly in comfort and detail retrieval, but like many closed back headphones here, EQ goes a long way. I think the success of the AR5000 had Aune thinking they could ask for a bit more on their next model. I agree to an extent about the price increase over the AR5000, especially when you compare the SR7000 performance to many other models here, but I don't feel it should have been double the price of the less expensive and still equally comparable AR5000. Regardless of price, the SR7000 is still one of the best overall headphones in this review, so it's up to you if that value is worth it. Lastly, I have one model that kind of cheats the budget a little but offers something special. The ZMF Bokeh is a boutique headphone, handmade in the US and built special for you. Most ZMF products are customizable, allowing you to select the pad, cable, and even finishes. At $1,099, it's just over the $1,000 budget I set for this video, but if you want something that feels so much more personal or special to own or gift to someone, well, here it is. The Bokeh comes in a rather wide box, presenting all of the components and accessories like a gift. You are greeted by gorgeous wood cups, a leather headband, and all the accessories you added to the kit when you checked out. Putting them on your head feels a little bit different as well. Regardless of the pad choice, this certainly feels like a more expensive headphone. Without any EQ, the Bokeh has a punchy and engaging bass with lots of warmth in the low mids. It has the best blend of dynamics, extension, and bass quality or texture. This will definitely come across a little bit bloated or boxy sounding with some songs, and vocals certainly have a little bit more weight to them. So many tracks just sound more intimate and, dare I say, just lush sounding. Consider this as a headphone to grab at night with your favorite drink and just lose yourself to the music of all genres. I find myself less focused on the analytical side of listening and just enjoying a wide variety of normal music more than most headphones here. The bass is strong and deep, but it's so much more enveloping than pretty much all the other headphones I've discussed. And yeah, the vocals don't quite cut through the mix as something like the SR7000, with the treble being tame as well, but consider this more of an intimate or cozy listen. If you're a bass head but you still want to enjoy the rest of the music, this is about as good as it gets without spending a fortune. And then for you gaming folks out there looking for a closed back headphone, don't need a mic, and you have different price ranges, well, I have a few picks in mind. So you could make the case that the AKG K361 is a great pick for gaming because it has a little bit less bass and more treble emphasis, which really helps for gaming. However, I don't think the comfort is as good as the FiiO JT1. So the JT1 is a good balance, and yes, it has a lot of bass, but it also has great detail retrieval and imaging performance. So if the bass is too much, you can always EQ some of that down. Otherwise, it's a very immersive and rewarding headphone under $100. The FiiO FT1 is easily the best pick under $200 I've used for gaming. It's very comfortable, the sound quality is fantastic, and thanks to the dual 3.5mm termination, it's very easy to add your own microphone solution if you really want to turn it into a full-fledged gaming headset. Now in the more expensive category, diminishing returns kick in really hard after the beyerdynamic DT700 Pro X. It's a wonderful headphone for gaming, both in immersive gaming for, casual single player stuff, but also excellent for FPS gaming thanks to its fantastic imaging performance and the way it's tuned out of the box. Now I would make the case for the Aune SR7000 for the ultimate single player gaming or casual gaming headphone. The comfort and sound quality is superb, and if you really want to lose yourself into the game, that wide soundstage does a fantastic job of doing so. That same vastness or wideness in sound presentation, while fantastic for single player gaming, isn't as helpful for FPS. So even though the SR7000 can be superior in a lot of areas, I still think the beyerdynamic DT700 Pro X is a better choice for FPS gaming. Now I'm sure I may have missed a couple closed back models you care about, and if I do, I'm really sorry. I intentionally left out the HiFi and closed back headphones because as much as I love their open backs, their closed back options simply aren't as competitive as a lot of the models mentioned here, so it didn't make sense to include them. There are a couple other higher end models that are also highly praised that I didn't get my hands on in time for this video, one of them being the Emotique, which is a wonderful headphone both in the looks and sound / ownership experience department. And then you have the Dan Clark Audio Aeon Noir, which I really wanted to get in time for this video. It just didn't work out timing wise, but there are some good video reviews online on YouTube and also on various websites, so take a look at those if you're interested in more of the higher end stuff. All right, so that wraps up my roundup on closed back headphones, and I really hope you found this guide helpful. And if you did, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button so I can see you at the next one. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.